Yep.
Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call the meeting to order. Would everyone please rise for a short prayer and a salute to the flag? Almighty God, grant us the wisdom to make those decisions that are in the best interest of all of our residents. May the Heavenly Father of us all bless those who have given the ultimate sacrifice in service to our nation, and may He watch over and protect our servicemen and women now guarding the gates of freedom. Salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Jessica, statement of publication, please.
Take notice that this regular meeting of the mayor and council being held on this 13th day of May 2019 has been advertised and posted in accordance with Open Public Meetings Act, Chapter 231, Public Law 1975.
Roll call.
Councilpersons Buchanan.
Here.
Delina.
Here.
Enriquez.
Here.
Kilpatrick.
Here.
McGill. Novak.
Thank you. At this time, I'm going to move that the following minutes be received and filed subject to correction. The March 25th, 2019 budget and executive session, the April 8th, 2019 regular executive and agenda session, April 10th, 2019 receipt of bids for water department chemicals, and the April 22nd, 2019 regular and agenda session.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
I abstained from April 22nd because I wasn't here.
Okay. Okay. At this time, the mayor has a proclamation I'm going to read. It's Mental Health Awareness Month. Whereas the U.S. Surgeon General's report on mental health has concluded that mental health is an essential component of all overall health and well-being. Whereas for more than 50 years, Mental Health America has proclaimed May as Mental Health Awareness Month to raise awareness about mental health, combat the social stigma and discrimination associated with mental illness that often prevents people from seeking help, promote a message of hope and recovery, and celebrate consumer strength and resilience. Whereas people with mental illness and addiction recover if given the necessary support and service in the community, yet many avoid seeking help due to stigma and the fear of discrimination. Whereas Middlesex County recognizes the stigma associated with mental illness and addiction and acknowledges that many people may remain unserved because of the stigma of seeking help. This month, we call attention to this so we can bring mental illness and addiction out of the shadows and encourage treatment and support. We acknowledge that greater public awareness about mental health and addiction recovery can change negative attitudes and behaviors. Whereas Middlesex County stands with those impacted by behavioral and health challenges and pledges to increase awareness and greater understanding of these conditions. We will work to reduce stigma and discrimination and increase appropriate, accessible supports and services. We will strive to promote a message of hope and the belief that healing and recovery are attainable. Now, therefore, Kennedy O'Brien, Mayor of the Borough of Saraville, do hereby proclaim the month of May 2019 as Mental Health Awareness Month and call upon all citizens to participate in efforts to increase awareness and better understanding of mental illness and addiction, and work towards eliminating stigma in Saraville. Is there a motion?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Next item, I'm going to call the Representative Dan from UTP up. If you can just come up. Dan, if you would, state your name, your company, and go on from there.
Dan Malloy, company's Unified Technology Partners.
Okay.
You got everybody here? First, I would just like to say, go ahead.
There we go. Try that one more time, Dan.
My name is Dan Aloya from Unified Technology Partners in Fairfield, New Jersey.
And I would just like to add that we've been working with Dan Aloya now in regards to our water treatment facilities and securing that area, as we have discussed now for over a year when it was first brought to us through the DEP. Over the last couple of months, I've met with Dan. I've also met with the Water and Sewer Committee, so that way we can go over a very smart, a very accessible, and as well as a very secure environment for that area, providing basically a blended approach to still allow people to utilize that area that we were discussing, and also make sure that our facility and our employees are safe as well as our residents. I also wanted to say thank you to our technology director who's here today, and as well as the police chief, the director of the recreation department, Jerry Ust, who also worked with us. And if I'm leaving anybody out, I don't think I am, though. I think that does it. So I just wanted to say thank you and allow you to begin with your presentation.
Okay. So as Councilwoman stated, we were brought in just over a year ago to assess the water treatment plant, the facility, the facility, the building off to the west side of it, which is the water maintenance, and the reservoir on the campus surrounding it for some water protection. The concern was that the DEP was concerned of the security surrounding the area because it is potable water, as we began to find out more. And the DEP was kind of on the case as far as how that is going to be protected. So we came out, we did an assessment of the entire area. We looked at the natural barriers. We looked at areas that we saw of concern. We looked at the assets of the time, which was the buildings on site and the chemical areas, and then the development of the newer assets, which is the solar panels and the infrastructure that goes within that. After we provided an assessment, we were discussing the possibility of fencing off the entire area. There was some concerns about fencing off the area because of the nature of the area and what it is used for. So we met with different entities, different people that need to access the area or that have concerns within the area. And we're able to scale the, and I'm sorry, the other thing is we did meet with the DEP since then to actually try to get what they were concerned with as far as security. And we had a very long meeting with them discussing some different ideas and what they think and what we thought would be a good meet me in the middle as far as to secure the area. So after all these meetings, we decided to scale back the fencing, which was a great concern. And we looked at maybe some fencing along the west side, coming up about halfway. The center, there's like a culvert or something in the center there, and coming up there halfway, and then another area off to the east side, and again coming up halfway and putting in gates and then bringing along fencing and putting security cameras around the perimeter. This would give access to the people that do have access, whether it's warranted or not, that do have access throughout the area. And it would protect the asset of the Borough of Sayreville, which is what we discussed. Our primary concern when we started out was the water treatment plant and then into the water. There are chemical deliveries there. There is multiple concerns for that area. And then, like I said, going into the reservoir as well. So we provided a plan for the council tonight. This is a schematic plan. We're ready to go out and look at procurement of the two stages of it, which is the fencing and the security plan. If there's any questions on that.
And I just want to refresh for the residents that are watching when it comes to this. All of the security, camera, and the physical barriers, this is all going to be covered by the grant that we were able to obtain through the county. So this is an excellent opportunity here for the Borough of Sayreville to move through and protect, like we have discussed. We have the largest floating solar panel field here in New Jersey in the entire country. Is that correct, Mr. Cornell, I believe? So we have a very, very important and a very good opportunity for the borough in order to see some savings when it comes to our energy costs. And we have a responsibility to keep our residents safe and actually keep that safe as well. This was an excellent way for an entire group of community to come together and provide the best of both worlds. This is our nature preserve area, and through this plan, the nature preserve still remains accessible The Boy Scouts still have opportunity to utilize the camp and still have access to the water there, as well as the other sides. The trails are still in existence, and it still maintains safety for our water and sewer employees, and providing us security when it comes to that facility, which is literally like a laboratory, and we want to keep that as safe as possible. I cannot stress what a great team it was to work with your group, as well as all of our borough officials that came to the table. Jerry Us was very, very careful, and he brought it to the recreation board also, for them to take a look at what we were looking to do to create what was called these choke points. He was very, very pleased with it, so I am very happy to bring this forward and the chief, we did get the opportunity to sit down with the chief. Dan, I believe you brought this to him recently, but we also met with Mr. Blumacher, and he endorsed this plan 100%, and he said he was actually more pleased with what we were able to do as a more blended approach from where we were in the beginning to now. So I know that he's not here with us right now, but I'm certain you could attest to what he had
Yes,
stated.
very pleased with what we were talking about.
So, again, I thank you very much, and we get to move forward. We don't need to take any action at this point, I believe, as long as everybody is comfortable with what they see. I think we can just let you move forward with the next phase.
Does anyone have any questions? If not, anyone object? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Okay, and at this point, we have to go into executive session for a couple items, so our attorney is going to read a statement.
Yes, whereas Section 8 of the Open Public Meeting Act permits the exclusion of the public from the meeting in certain circumstances, whereas this public body is of the opinion that such circumstances presently exist, now therefore be it resolved by the mayor and council of the Borough of Sayreville, the public portion of the meeting is hereby adjourned in order that the governing body may meet in closed private session for approximately 15 minutes to discuss personnel and grievances. Following the conclusion of said closed session, the governing body shall reconvene the open portion of this public meeting to consider any other matters which may be properly brought before it at this time. The nature and content of the discussion which occurs in closed session shall be made public at such time as the need for non-disclosure no longer exists. This resolution shall take effect immediately.
Is there a motion?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? light off. Mr. Newton. All right. Yep. Is there a motion to reconvene?
Make a motion to reconvene?
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, next item, old business. Michael, I was directed to bring this to you.
Yeah, this is just the report from the Sayreville Planning Board following a special meeting they had on the 24th, approving the following ordinances, referring them back to the council. This was truly done out of the special master's recommendation for some grammatical and just some editorial comments. But they include ordinance 448-19, the new affordable housing districts, and AH1 and 2, also new affordable housing districts in AH3. Also, the land development to permit affordable accessory apartment in the Office of Services overlay zone, adopting the River Road redevelopment amendment, planning board resolution recommending the amended housing element and fair share plan, undated April 2019, and the associated ordinances, and the resolution 2019-148 endorsing an amendment, the housing element and fair share plan listed on the consent agenda. And again, this is merely just following through with the court order as well as the special master's recommendations.
Okay. Next item.
Public hearing on the following ordinances. Ordinance number 448-19, an ordinance of the Borough of Sayreville amending and supplementing Article 3 of Chapter 26, Land Development of the Code of the Borough of Sayreville to establish new affordable housing districts, AH1, AH2, and to set forth the standards and criteria applicable thereto.
Okay, at this time, I'm going to open up the public portion for ordinance 448-19, for item 448-19 only. Yes, Mr. Robinson?
Thank you, Mr. Council President. Jim Robinson, 11 Burrell Square. I am glad we are finally at the point where we can be approving these ordinances. I was originally going to say that they are immeasurably better than what we started with a couple years ago, what the planning board had fashioned and sent to the council for their approval. I thought about that. They aren't immeasurably better. They are measurably better. We can measure how much better they are. We can measure that as a result of these ordinances. There will be fewer market rate apartments. There will be fewer cars. There will be fewer school children. Not that that's a bad thing, but there's a cost associated with that. There will be, thank you, there will be more apartments for seniors, thanks to Sarah getting involved and the Housing Authority getting involved, and there will be apartments that will have veterans' preference as a result of this. So this is a measurably better ordinance, and I appreciate. Thank you. And I appreciate very much that you are at this point. I know it took a lot of time, effort, energy, required a change in the attorney, required a change in the planner. Both of those changes were for the better. It required the judge to do something that I have rarely seen a judge do, and that was rescind an order that he gave in order to put his stamp of approval on a better product that was devised by the new professionals that the council retained, based on the comments of members of the public and members of the council. So I am really appreciative that we are at this point. This is really a much better ordinance, and I appreciate all the time, effort, and energy that everybody has put into it. I do have just a couple questions with respect to 448-19, and I'm actually, it probably applies to both. I'm actually looking at Camelot 2, where it talks about additional standards, Section 8. Maybe this is a question for Mr. Berry or Mr. Cornell, but it says under letter A, the development shall include recreational facilities for use by the residents of the entire tract. Can somebody tell me what kind of recreational facilities are envisioned? Will any be mandated? I mean, recreational facility, I suppose, could be a hopscotch thing drawn on a parking lot. I hope that's not what we're talking about here.
You know what, if I may, Mayor, Mr. Berry from the planner's office is here, and I know that he has been intricately involved in this, so maybe he can assist in some clarification to your question.
Good evening.
This is John Berry from Susan Gruhl's office.
Yes. To answer your question, Mr. Robinson, the recreational facilities, it could be any of a number of things that you would typically see in a multifamily residential development. It could be a pool, could be a tennis court. I think that when the time comes for a final site plan review before the planning board, assuming the proposed development moves forward in this current form, there'll be a fleshing out of whatever the recreational amenity is that the applicant chooses to design. May include a clubhouse, any number of different things.
On the conceptual site plan here, it does say clubhouse. It's too small for me to see if those are tennis courts or a pool or anything else there, but maybe somebody half my age can see it.
I wear glasses too, Jim.
Okay. But that's something I think that at the time that there's a site plan approval, I think that the borough ought to look at that and make sure that whatever those recreational facilities are, that they be meaningful. And if it's going to include a clubhouse, that's a very good thing, so I appreciate that. My other question is, under C, it indicates that the proposed retention basins shall be maintained as an additional amenity for the site. Now, I know when I was the planning board chairman, we required something similar in other projects. Can somebody, maybe Mr. Cornell or Mr. Berry, you tell us what's envisioned there?
Yeah, no, I think that would probably be more of a passive recreational amenity. You keep the retention basin in good order, have some landscaping, have a walking trail near it. It, essentially functions as a small water body within the site that is just a nice natural, sort of natural place within the development. Like I said, maybe some benches around it. That'll be fleshed out at the time of site plan review before the planning board.
And is there a requirement in this ordinance that there be a management company or a manager to maintain the site, to maintain the property?
I don't believe there's any specific requirement in the ordinance that there be a management company, but typically when you have common amenities as part of a development, there'd be some sort of master deed, some sort of entity responsible for the maintenance of all of those common areas. So that would be something that, again, down the line gets reviewed as part of a planning board application and then the operation of the site.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Berry. And I would hope that at the time that Mr. Kaplan comes in for site plan approval, that that's something that would be required. And I have one last question, and it perhaps is the most important one. The conceptual site plan for what is called the Ernston Road site, which is Camelot 2, talks about a total of 150 units. And I just want everybody to verify that that will be the maximum.
No, that's correct.
Okay, I don't know that that's in the language itself, but it's in the conceptual site plan.
I think it's in the order, to be honest with you. The agreement, correct.
Is it?
It's under subsection 6 of the AH2 section. Yep.
Thank you very much, I appreciate that. And again, thank you all for this. A lot of time, effort, energy went into it, and I congratulate you all. It's a much, much better project.
Thanks, Mr. Robinson.
Thank you, Mr. Robinson. Anyone else from the public wishes to speak on 448-19? If not, I'll entertain a motion. Councilman Dolina?
I move the public hearing be closed, the ordinance adopted on second and final reading and advertised according to law.
Second.
Roll call?
Councilpersons Delina,
Yes.
Buchanan,
Yes.
Enriquez,
Yes.
Kilpatrick,
Yes.
Miguel.
Yes.
Okay, next item.
Public hearing on ordinance number 449-19, an ordinance of the Borough of Saraville amending and supplementing Article 3 of Chapter 26, Land Development of the Code of the Borough of Saraville to establish new affordable housing districts, AH-3, and to set forth the standards and criteria applicable thereto.
This time I'll open the public portion for item 449-19. Is anyone from the public wish to speak on ordinance 449-19? If no questions, I'll entertain a motion. Councilman Delina. I'm sorry, hold on. Yes.
Janice Benedetto, 1 Thomas Avenue in the Melrose section. I'm also within 200 feet of the Cross Avenue, Oak Street National Lead property. Going line by line, paragraph by paragraph, from the 2018 ordinance to the new ordinance that you're proposing passing tonight, I brought up one question at the planning board meeting, and it's on page 5 of the new ordinance under E, exterior lighting. On the old ordinance 414-18, it was also on page 5 under small letter E, exterior lighting, small letter I. On the 2018 ordinance, there was some additional wording saying, "And illumination shall be in accordance with IES standards." That has been eliminated from the ordinance you're proposing to pass tonight. I wanted to know why.
Michael?
Yeah, Mr. Barry can either recommend that or I can make a comment.
I believe that the answer is that it was simply an oversight and a versioning of the language, but I will point out to the council that the borough's land development ordinance includes a section on lighting design that's comprehensive and covers every development application that comes before one of the boards in town. And it includes a section, it's ordinance 26-96.8, subsection B, that says all lighting shall be designed in accordance with minimum standards of safety and suggested lighting levels as specified herein and in the standards of the Illuminating Engineers Society, that's the IES. So the language that had been incorporated in the 2018 version is essentially language that's already in the borough's ordinance. It's sort of a belt and suspenders approach. I would, if the council wishes to include it, I see no reason not to, but I just want to point out that it's already covered by those standards as any development in town would be.
I don't know if there's a difference in saying the minimum standards of safety versus what was in here, and I didn't know why it was excluded. Was it a mere oversight, or is there a purpose in it?
No.
Did the master want it out for some reason?
No, I don't. I think that, again, there was probably, as Mr. Berry just recommended, probably a belt and suspender observation that the language was not required, just because we already have an existing ordinance that requires what the illumination, the IES standards. So I don't, based on Mr. Berry's recommendations, I don't think that we need to amend it, that it's already obligated by any applications that come in here based on the IES standards.
Because as a resident within 200 feet of this property, I would be concerned about glare, I would be concerned about light pollution, I would be concerned about items of that sort, and I don't know what specifically are covered in other areas of the town's ordinances.
And that's why Mr. Berry just indicated that the existing ordinance already requires the IES standard. In addition, the ordinance does indicate that any exterior lighting shall not create excessive glare or light levels or direct light onto neighboring buildings or properties. So between the ordinance that compiles or compels the IES standard together with this direct language in here, I think you should be okay.
All right, the other thing that, looking at the way the ordinances were developed, they seem to be from the 1990s, and this is 2019, where LED lighting and things of that sort are new technology being utilized. I don't know if the town's standards match and are adequate for the new technology as far as shielding goes and things like that with the way technology develops so quickly. I don't know if the ordinances stand up to what's being utilized today.
If I might, the ordinance doesn't specifically state standards. The ordinance specifically refers to the IES standard. And that is my understanding, Mr. Berry, you can correct me if I'm wrong, that is updated on a continual basis together with the technology advancements regarding lighting. In addition, as I said, the language in there prohibits any glare or light levels or direct light onto neighboring buildings or properties. So again, there is a requirement that no glare or lighting shall be shown or shined upon your properties, at least in the ordinance. So, again, I think based on Mr. Berry's recommendation as well as the ordinance, I think we should be all right, at least you should be all right and feel comfortable that you will not have excess glare or light levels or direct light onto neighboring buildings or properties.
All right, because I don't know what, how often the IES updates their standards, and I don't know what minimum safety standards entail. So I hope that when the actual development starts, that it is the best possible development in every way, shape, or form. So.
Thank you.
Just when the development moves forward, there'll be an application before the planning board, and at that time you'd have the board's engineer, board's planner will review all the lighting in addition to everything else. You'll have an opportunity to come, being within 200 feet, you'll be notified, and you'll have an opportunity to come and review the lighting as part of that process.
Yeah, there will be a requirement for a lighting plan, so you'll be notified of that.
All right, and as some of you know, I very often get up and speak, and I very often have Melrose neighbors here with me, as we do tonight. But I know we have new members of the council on board now that may not know me. And I would just like to quickly review the history of this. In my opinion, this is ordinance does more or less restate and finalize in proper format to suit the court. So you are passing 449-19, not making any great changes from last year's ordinance 414-18 and 424-18. But unfortunately, 22 acres of wooded property with wildlife like wild turkeys and deer and raccoon and hawks and other concerns such as watersheds and floodplains and things like that are going to be developed when the Melrose residents banded together and presented a petition at that time with 485 signatures, and we never bothered to give you the rest of the signatures because all of a sudden the settlement came up and it's very unfortunate that due to past mistakes in counting credits for the COA obligation and things of this sort, these 22 acres had to be included when they could have been purchased for open space. The Open Space Committee did recommend the purchase. The town has unspent monies of millions and millions of dollars that they haven't spent over many, many years on anything. National Lead even expressed the desire to potentially sell the property to the town as open space. It's really unfortunate that 2018's settlement took place, 2018's ordinances took place, and that now we're finalizing, trying to perfect all the wording and make the court happy with these 2019 ordinances. It's really a shame that we're going to lose the quality of life for not only the residents of the town, but for the wildlife, and you don't have 22 acres in town, anywhere else that's wooded like it is, and that it should have been purchased for open space. And I hope that this doesn't happen again in this borough, and I hope that as this is developed, we make it the best development humanly possible to enhance the quality of life in this town, and that as it's developed, we do everything possible to maintain as much open space and wooded area on this property as possible, because we have a concept plan, but it's not a definitive plan yet. So maybe the concept plan as it moves forward can be improved, and we can make it something that Saraville can be proud of, and that can enhance the lives of the residents, and residents being human beings, wildlife, and plants and trees, and that we very carefully look into floodplains and watersheds and things of that sort. And I wanted to ask how we stand on purchasing the acreage that were approved for open space from the Camelot 1 and Camelot 2 properties. Where do we stand in that process right now?
Yes, I was notified this week that the easement agreement that Mr. Kaplan was negotiating with is being negotiated and executed. So I'm just waiting for that easement agreement from Conrail to be forthcoming.
Well, seeing as we lost 22 acres, I'll be happy when that actually is purchased for open space to see that something was actually saved, that something was actually accomplished, because I believe at this stage of the game, you deeded over the acre of land that was the borough's to National Lead as part of the Cross Avenue Oak Street property already?
Yes, that was done in accordance with the court's order, yes.
All right, well, that was done quickly, so I hope the purchase of the Kaplan property is done as quickly.
Yes,
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
How we doing? Charlie Lukey, 324 Oak Street, Melrose section of Saraville. My question to you people, you're going to take and turn around and develop the 22 acres or whatever they are up on the top of Oak Street. Again, I ask you, what are you going to do about the sewers? There's no pipes up there. Who's going to pay for it? Are the taxpayers of the town responsible, or is the developer responsible, or do you give everybody that buys an apartment there a pot to take out in the morning?
Mr. Dupont.
It's no joke.
I don't think any of those options.
What's that, Mr. Dupont? I can't hear.
Mr. Larkey, I don't think the last was negotiated at all, and I don't think that there's been any payment for or promises to put sewers up there, but it's certainly something that we'll certainly look into.
How are you going to do this? You want to build houses in a hole. You got to pump this stuff up the top of the hill to get rid of it. The pipe going up there ain't big enough to carry it. Who's going to pay for all of this?
It's my understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Cornell, is that would be part of any approvals or any development, correct?
That's correct. As part of any development application, they're going to have to submit a plan showing how they intend to sewer the development. If it means putting a pump station in a force main, they'll have to demonstrate the line they're connecting to has adequate capacity. If not, they'll have to pay to upgrade it. So that's a responsibility of the developer to address all those issues.
That's going to be the responsibility of the developer. Our taxes ain't going up for people doing a favor. Another question, Jay. Oak Street, it broke apart in two places. You got 8 inches of macadam there.
Mr. Luque.
And for the road to break
excuse me,
like
Ms.
that
Luque.
is ridiculous.
We have to stick on this one topic right now. You can come back and talk about the other
Okay.
out, at the open public portion. Anyone else regarding this ordinance? Yes, come on up.
Hi, my name is Steve Roque. I'm representing MGR Realty, who owns the land where Costa Verde is. And excuse me if I'm speaking out of turn. I wasn't sure if I was supposed to wait for the end or for now, but I hear Cross Avenue being brought up. And with MGR's survey, Cross Avenue is currently running through the western portion of it. And we're concerned with You know, parking is an issue for our business. We have taken over some National Lead's land there that's not being used when, on Friday nights, Saturday nights, when it gets really busy. I notice people are parking there, so my concern, and please stop me if I'm supposed to say this at the end. Talk about it now.
Michael?
You know what I'll do? When we take a break, I'll come introduce myself, and we can address that issue, after the meeting, or even have a meeting to discuss your concerns regarding that. Oh, okay. All right, that's fine.
So it's really just a question of land and space. Your tax map, has the road going around my lot. My survey has the road going through my lot. I've sent a letter to mayor and council. I was told to speak to National Lead. I've tried to speak to them. They're kind of pushing me back to the town. It seems like there's an agreement, which I have here, and I could submit anything if anyone wants to look. Like a dedication of Cross Avenue right-of-way agreement. So spoke to their lawyer.
Who did you speak to with their lawyer? Was that Mr. From Archer Griner? What's the gentleman from Archer Griner?
Chris Gibson.
Yeah, Mr.
Yes,
Gibson.
Chris Gibson.
Right.
I've been speaking to your county clerk regarding this. You're planning, someone in planning also. Excuse me, my mind's a little blank right now.
And when you spoke to Mr. Gibson, what did he say?
Basically that the plans were in. They're not aware of the road being not where it's supposed to be.
Did you show him that the survey that you had or possessed?
It was just over the phone. I've definitely emailed the survey. My attorney has.
Yeah, because you know what? You had forwarded correspondence, I believe, last year, or it was a number of months ago, and I forwarded that correspondence on to Mr. Gibson. And he had indicated that he was going to follow up with you, did he not?
Now you've brought my memory back. He told me that he didn't get anything from you.
No, that's not true. Because
I totally believe you, not saying one way or another.
Yeah, because you had sent the correspondence, I believe, last year regarding that, and I forwarded the correspondence to Mr. Gibson, and he had indicated that he was going to reach out to you to discuss some of the confusion or some of the survey issues that you brought up regarding the street and parking, correct?
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah. Right. He went blank on me, though. He says he's got nothing.
Well, Mr. Gibson did lose a son recently, so that may have caused some absence. I can certainly follow up with Mr. Gibson on your behalf and give you my card.
Okay. My attorney also.
Who's your attorney?
Alex Wicksted.
Yeah,
Tried to contact you this week also, from what he told me.
I don't know about that, but I'll give you my card and my information today.
Okay.
I recall speaking about this in our meetings, and there was adjustments need to be made on the cross when it gets repaved over there, because you did bring it up before, so that was something that we were trying to address beforehand.
Yeah, my letter, I think.
I don't know if, John, do you are familiar with this?
I'm afraid I don't have any details or information about Cross Avenue's alignment, but I'm sure it's something that'll need to be addressed down the line.
Yeah, it was definitely something we discussed because you had brought your concerns beforehand.
Okay.
And we know that supposedly it's partially on your property, so we can't build the road back on your property.
We did talk about it, and I remember that also, Dan, and I thought that there were a couple of different potential adjustments, ideas, or plans moving forward after the attorney spoke. And I guess it was you then that was going to provide, or other people were going to provide something, and then adjustments would be made.
Like another plan?
That was being left to be
Rerouting the road.
discussed. Yeah.
How the road routes.
Okay.
You know what I'll do is I'll follow up on, if your attorney calls me, I'll give him the emails and give him the correspondence I sent to Mr. Gibson, and then I'll give you my cell and my email information, so if your counsel could reach out to me, that would be great, and I'll give him the background information of what Mr. Gibson and I spoke about.
Well, thank you all for your time.
Oh, sure, no
Appreciate it.
worries.
Anyone else from the public wish to speak? Yes, sir. Come on, George.
George Podolak, 48 Scott Avenue, the Melrose section.
The fence that comes along the Cross Avenue property had private property, no trespassing, danger, quicksand. Could you please tell me what's happening with the quicksand? Or is that going to be forgotten about, and then we'll get a reoccurrence of the contamination on Scott Avenue, which so far has cost the state, the taxpayers, $2 million to clean up, and it's still not cleaned up. Could you please tell me what's the story with the quicksand up there?
John?
Thank you.
So, sir, I don't have any information about the quicksand, but I can tell you that the property owner, as part of the site plan application due diligence, is going to have to do soil testing, soil borings on the site to determine how well the soil can hold water, how well the soil can hold buildings. It's part of a standard site plan application. So at that time, if something needs to be done, it's private property. They're going to have to look into doing what they have to do.
Okay, because I'm concerned that it's not going to be a duplication of Scott Avenue. There was 4 homes there, and the DEP, the assembly voted to buy them out, and when it went to the Senate, it just dropped dead. And so far, there's $2 million spent on cleanup. And 43 Scott Avenue, there's $1 million. They could have bought that house out twice. And I'm afraid that it's going to be a duplication up on Cross Avenue. And I don't want to see us, in this case, the taxpayers of Saraville. Right now, the state's paying for Scott. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
Move the public hearing be closed, the ordinance adopted on second and final reading and advertised according to law.
Second.
Roll call?
Councilpersons Delina?
Yes.
Buchanan?
Yes.
Enriquez?
Yes.
Kilpatrick?
Yes.
McGill?
Yes.
Next item?
Public hearing on ordinance number 450-19, an ordinance supplementing and amending Article 3 of Chapter 26, Land Development of the Revised General Ordinances of the Borough of Saraville to permit affordable accessory apartments in the office services overlay zone.
Thank you. At this time, I'm going to open up the public portion to ordinance 450-19. Does anyone wish to speak on ordinance 450-19? If no one, I'll entertain a motion.
I move the public hearing be closed, the ordinance adopted on second and final reading and advertised according to law.
Roll call?
Councilpersons Delina?
Yes.
Buchanan?
Yes.
Enriquez?
Yes.
Kilpatrick?
Yes.
McGill?
Yes.
Next item?
Public hearing on ordinance number 451-19, an ordinance adopting the River Road redevelopment plan amendment.
At this time, I'll open up the public portion to ordinance 451-19. Anyone wish to speak on ordinance 451-19? Yes, ma'am.
Hi, Patricia Callarell.
Can you just hold the mic up a little bit closer?
Sure. Patricia Callarell, former Saraville resident, on behalf of my mother, who resides at 386 Main Street. The lot 1203 in block 175 is our main concern because it is directly across her house. And we wanted to know about the access, hang on one second. The water line right-of-way that is on lot 1204 and 1203. Is that going to be a throughway onto Main Street?
Mr. Barry, do you sign that? Do you see that? I mean, you're younger than I am. It says 10,
Page 8.
10-foot water line right-of-way. That's not a road, right? That's just a right-of-way for a water line?
As far as I know, looks like, yeah, we're looking at the tax map here on.
Right.
We're looking at the same thing. It's shown as a 10-foot water line right-of-way that runs through several lots between Saraville Boulevard and Main Street. That's just for the pipes.
It's a right-of-way for a water line, ma'am. It's not a road.
There's no road.
No, ma'am.
Okay, now, do you have any site plans yet for the senior housing that's going to be built over there?
Not at this time. As we said with some of the earlier ordinances, at the time when there's developers ready to move forward, there'll be an application to the planning board and a review process will be undertaken.
Okay, so you don't know how many units are going to be there?
Oh, with the number we know, yes. It's 88 units is the number. Yes. I'm sorry, it's 100% affordable family rental development we're talking.
I'm talking about the senior development. That's
I apologize.
in lot 1204,
We don't have a total number. It's 6 dwelling units per acre is the density standard, so that's the maximum number.
Okay, my next question is on 1203, lot 1203, what is going to be built there? Because it's a small section. This little section, yes.
So that little section, as you see, is part of the senior housing development. What will actually be built on that piece, I can't tell you at this moment. It's something that'll have to be reviewed as part of the site plan application.
And when will that be? Do we have an idea as to when they'll?
I don't know.
All right. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak on 451-19? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
Move the public hearing be closed, the ordinance adopted on second and final reading and advertised according to law.
Second.
Roll call.
Councilpersons Delina?
Yes.
Buchanan?
Yes.
Enriquez?
Yes.
Kilpatrick?
Yes.
McGill?
Yes.
Okay, at this point, we have a individual, Regina Mako, requesting to be on the Human Relations Commission, and I believe there is an opening. So I'm going to make a motion that we appoint Regina Mako to the Human Relations Commission. Is there, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Next item, Jessica, number 6.
I would like to report that we received the supplemental debt statement received from the CFO Denise Biancamano as of May 13, 2019.
Is there a motion?
Make a motion, receive and file.
I'll second.
Councilpersons Delina?
Yes.
Buchanan?
Yes.
Enriquez?
Yes.
Kilpatrick?
Yes.
McGill?
Yes.
Thank you.
Introduction of the following ordinances, bond ordinance number 453-19, bond ordinance providing for various 2019 roadway paving and reconstruction projects by and in the Borough of Sayreville in the County of Middlesex, State of New Jersey, appropriating $3.8 million therefore, including a grant received or expected to be received from the New Jersey Department of Transportation in the amount of $401,350, and authorizing the issuance of $3,398,650 bonds or notes of the borough to finance part of the cost thereof.
Councilwoman Kilpatrick for,
That's
sorry,
adequate
Councilman
finance, but
McGill.
If you like.
Councilman McGill.
Introduction. I move the ordinance be approved on first reading, advertised according to law, and a public hearing be held on May 28th, 2019.
Second.
Roll call.
Councilpersons McGill?
Yes.
Buchanan?
Yes.
Delina?
Yes.
Enriquez?
Yes.
Kilpatrick?
Yes.
Introduction of ordinance number 454-19, an ordinance amending and supplementing Chapter 7 of the revised general ordinances of the Borough of Sayreville to amend Section 7-3.3, parking prohibited at all time on certain streets.
I move the ordinance be approved on first reading, advertised according to law, and a public hearing to be held on May 28, 2019.
Second.
Councilpersons Buchanan?
Yes.
Delina?
Yes.
Enriquez?
Yes.
Kilpatrick?
Yes.
McGill?
Yes.
Introduction of ordinance number 455-19, an ordinance amending and supplementing Chapter 4 of the revised general ordinances of the Borough of Sayreville to add Section 4-10.7, Community Outreach and Special Projects Service Bureau.
I move the ordinance be approved on first reading, advertised according to law, and a public hearing to be held on May 28, 2019.
Second.
Councilpersons Buchanan?
Yes.
Delina?
Yes.
Enriquez?
Yes.
Kilpatrick?
Yes.
McGill?
Yes.
Next item, I'm going to open up the public portion for consent agenda resolutions. We're just going to be discussing the resolutions on our agenda at this time. If anyone has any comments or concerns, please on up. If no comments, I'll entertain a motion to close the
Make
public
the motion,
portion.
we close the public portion.
Second. Oh, you
Oh,
got it.
Steve, come on up, Steve. Hold on one second.
Steve Melanowski, 28 Scarlet Drive in Parlin. My question revolves around 2019-148. Can you give us a little bit more of an explanation? Endorsing an amendment housing element and fair share plan adopted by the planning board. What is that exactly, please?
Part of our COA settlement, Mr. Berry is here. I can get you a copy of it, but it just adopts and kind of formalizes what we've been doing for the last, I don't know, 9 months.
All right, so this is exactly what we've heard at previous council
Yes.
meetings.
Yeah, I'll give you a copy also, Steve.
Thank you.
You have a second copy.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public? If not, I move the public portion be closed and the consent agenda resolutions approved.
Second.
I am going to vote yes on all. I'm going to abstain on 143.
Councilpersons Delina,
Yes.
Enriquez,
Yes.
Kilpatrick,
Yes.
McGill.
Yes.
Okay. Next item, Borough Engineers Report,
No report, Mayor.
Borough Attorney's Report.
No report, Mayor.
Okay, at this point, I'm going to open up the public portion for any and all comments. Yes, sir. Please remember to come up, state your name and address, and we do have a 5-minute time.
Thank you. Good evening, members of the council. It's an honor and a pleasure to speak to you. Thank you for this opportunity. My name is Charles Cradaville. I'm a reporter with New Brunswick Today, a community newspaper here in Central Jersey, and I'm a resident in New Brunswick. Thank you for welcoming me. As part of my work as a reporter, I filed several requests for public records using the website oprahmachine.com. And I must say it's a phenomenal tool for requesting government records here all over New Jersey. And the records I requested were for basic employee information. And I want to begin by thanking the clerk's office for responding in a timely and complete fashion. I got everything I asked for. And when there was disagreements, we were able to work it out. And unfortunately, some of the records I received were cause for concern because they revealed that the borough is currently violating the state minimum wage law. I was surprised to learn this state's minimum wage law did not apply to local governments until recently. But with new legislation about to be signed into law, I contacted Mayor O'Brien on February 1 via email, did not receive a response, followed up on February 4, and eventually did get a call from the business administrator, who I know, Mr. Frankel, on February 5th. And I just do want to share with you the correspondence that I sent, if you'd be so kind. And something happened in between my initial outreach and the February 5th call I got from Mr. Frankel. And of course, what changed is that on February 4th, Governor Murphy signed into law A-15, legislation that for the first time required local governments, county governments, and boards of education to pay the state minimum wage, which is, of course, higher than the federal requirements of the Fair Labor Standards Act, which have always applied to the boroughs and townships across New Jersey. And so it's important to note that this law took effect immediately, February 4th. The moment the governor signed it, it was the law of this state. And so when I spoke to the BA on February 5th, I tried to make it clear that immediate corrective action would be necessary if the records I had received were accurate. And Mr. Frankel told me, we know what we're doing, and that was all I got at that point. But I continued my investigation. On March 5th, I followed up once again with the mayor via email, no response. Again, March 25th, again, no response. And so I continued to gather information using the oprahmachine.com website. On April 8th, I filed a request for documents that would show all active hourly employees on the borough payroll and what their hourly rate was. And the clerk's office responded on April 18th with a Microsoft Excel spreadsheet that revealed and confirmed that 7 employees were still listed at illegally low pay rates. And I'll provide you that exact response that I got here. And so you'll see in that spreadsheet, which is provided by the clerk's office, I believe, 1 employee at $8 per hour and 6 employees at $8.25 per hour. So that tells me that if these folks are active and working, that they are actually, illegally underpaid, because the minimum wage for all employees is $8.85 per hour. And I did confirm with other records that these folks are working. They are being paid at illegally low rates. And so on Friday, May 10th, I again contacted the mayor via email, copying the BA this time, and complete with the links to all these records were provided. And as I did back in February, I asked the mayor to please explain, address, and if necessary, correct these discrepancies. And so here's my communication that I sent in March and May. And so unfortunately, as of this moment, I still have not received a response from the administration. So I'm here tonight to inform the council that this continuing violation of state law is happening here. And I'm sure that I don't have to tell any of you how important public workers are to this community. And I sincerely hope you'll do the right thing by those workers and immediately approve retroactive pay raises back to the date that the law became effective. And so, indeed, Sayreville's not the only municipality that failed to account for this new law. I'm sure it was an honest mistake, but other mayors responded to my concerns, and other councils approved those retroactive raises that I asked them to do. And so I'm here tonight to ask if you can commit to doing the right thing, righting the wrong, correcting this, and doing right by these employees. It's at least 7 of them, and I do want to hear what's the update on this and what can we do about it.
Yes, Mr. Cradaville, or did I pronounce it right?
Yes, you did.
All right, thank you. You know what, I'll certainly, I know for a fact that this mayor and council certainly will rectify any wrong. This is I know that you had sent your OPA request last, a couple weeks ago, and I know the clerk's office did a yeoman's job getting you that information. What I promise to you is I'll look into it tomorrow to ensure what your information is accurate. I'll speak to Labor Council, and then I'll have an opportunity to give you a holler tomorrow. How's that?
That'd be great. Yeah, I just want some follow-up.
Yep.
Very much would appreciate that, and thank you for that. I'll leave you with my card. I have another meeting to get to, so I got to
Well, you know
run.
what, as you're walking out, I'll give you my card.
Sounds good. All right. Thank you very much, Mr.
Thank you.
President.
Yes, sir. Come on up.
Ed Little, 12 Bureau Court. Oops, sorry. Ed Little, 12 Bureau Court, Sayreville, New Jersey. I have a question that hasn't been able to get answered. I was at the planning board last week, asked a whole bunch of questions, and I'll save those for this coming board meeting. But the one I have that can't be answered by anybody really was the change in the water streams underneath the development of the new warehouse area. My wife has lived in the townhouse for 30 years, never had any water until Sandy. And everybody had water in Sandy.
Yeah.
But over the last year and a half, more and more water has been coming into the basement. It's running almost continuous. My neighbor got flooded out already. Across the way from us, his sump pump is running daily. And I was wondering what we can do about it.
Jay, do you have any guidance or I don't know if you're aware of it from the planning board?
I know the resident raised the question at the planning board level, but I'm not aware of reasons that may be happening other than the amount of rain that we've had. And
Well, actually, over the last 2 years, including this year, the rainfall in this township has been below normal.
Where would we get the answer from for that? How would you find out what?
It's typically the borough's not involved with instances like this on private property. It's a resident that has a problem with groundwater possibly leading in his basement. I don't know if it's grading patterns around the unit. I don't know if it's plugged drains.
It is totally connected with the development. It started when they started regrading the land over there. I also understand that planning board, they may even be breaking, not have permits to do some of this stuff. But right now, I'm concerned about the groundwater because from experience, 30 years ago when I owned another house, I did have a stream under the house. I was able to track that stream all throughout the development into a stream. So I know what the difference between groundwater is and a stream underneath the house. The grading on my particular area, we have the parking lot in front of us. We actually have more like a gully behind me. So it's not a raised area. It goes down into a pipe, and the pipe is actually almost empty all the time.
Mayor, it's not an issue we've looked at. If you'd like us to have someone go and take a look, we could.
Is that something the Townhouse Association?
I would think it's private property. It's probably something that they should look at first, but that's up to the council.
Well, it has to definitely do.
Have you reached out to your community, the townhome community?
They,
Nope.
They're stuck, you know, how are they gonna prove out the groundwater? All I know is the correlation is there. Absolutely no water for 25, 30 years, then water.
Jay, if you could, if anyone objects, just reach out to the townhome community, find out what they've researched so far. I just don't know how we'd find out where the water's coming from, but, I mean,
The property that you're, I mean, it's hard to turn around. I don't know what kind of definitive information you have to say that it's from that site. I understand the timeline.
I'm just saying the correlation is there.
Now, this is you're talking about the property that's across
It's a
the
warehouse
street.
development, right.
Well, there's no warehouses there yet, so.
No, but they are grading, they are loading new.
I just want to
fill in
make sure,
there.
I used to live in Main Street Townhome, so I know what street you're on. So you're talking about the property that is across the street, down the hill.
Right.
And your property, your street is, like, which street is that now? How far in?
Peterborough Court, it's the last turn in before the.
On the lower level?
circle.
Not the top, not the top,
Not
the,
the top.
the bottom level.
But as you probably know, they did build drainage in case there was water. And as I said, right now, that drainage pipe is empty. Used to be, you know, take all the extra water and get rid of it. So there has been a change. And as I said, it correlates with all the dumping of the new soil back there, the regrading of the land back there, because they are working back there.
Okay. All right, we'll have our engineer contact the Townhome Association, see what they've done, and see what direction we can give. If you can just provide the clerk's office with your information so we can reach back out to you.
Okay, appreciate that.
Okay, yes.
Hi, good evening. My name is Lisa Michelle. I'm with the Main Street Townhomes as well, 8 Slyther Lane. So I thought it would be appropriate to speak after this gentleman since there are some of us here tonight on some related concerns related to the Fulton Landing development specifically, but also in regards to the Main Street bypass and all the general development that's happening in Main Street in general. We spoke with some of the folks last week at the planning board, so we do appreciate the history of the litigation that's been going on with the property. We appreciate the town's need to generate revenue, and they prefer to do it from commercial sources instead of additional residential homes. So we appreciate that everyone involved in this is really put in between a rock and a hard place. However, we think that there needs to be more due diligence done on the planned use for Fulton Landing now. We understand that it's court-ordered mediation and things of that nature, but quite frankly, I don't think the court has had an opportunity, and will likely never have an opportunity, to hear from the residents themselves and really understand the significant impact that the development of not just this property, but the entire lower section of Main Street. I think it's all part and parcel of one. And I think that there are several matters that need to be concerned that warrant you delaying the vote on the ordinance next week to amend the master plan. And you need to, I think there needs to be more due diligence done and more outreach to the community, so there's more transparency and an understanding of the serious issues that need to be addressed. As my neighbor mentioned, there is activity on the Fulton Landing property. There's been soil dumping that's going on. My neighbor Arthur Rittenhouse can speak to the details of that. There's questions about the lack of permitting that's going on there. There's questions about the quality of the soil and the dangers of the soil and the testing that needs to be done. We want answers. Why is there activity on that property? Why are the permits expired? And who's doing what? That's one issue. Another issue is what the gentleman mentioned about the flooding that's going on in some of the homes in Main Street townhomes that's related to some of the issues going on with Fulton Landing as well. Those matters need to be investigated. It's not his problem. It's not the Townhouses Association's problem. This is a problem that needs to be addressed by the town. There were concerns the first time we spoke about this several years ago before this went to court. There were concerns about changes to the water lines and whatnot. There were several people with expertise in that matter who spoke about it, and those concerns are coming true, 5, 6 years later. One of the main issues that we have from last week's meeting when they showed us the plan, and we understand this is a hypothetical plan, or we're going to get a site plan at some point in the future, but before we even get to that, the traffic circulation issue and the plans for that have no basis in reality. The potential problems from putting an industrial complex in the middle of residential neighborhoods is severe. It rises to a different level, and it needs to be considered. And it needs to be brought to the court's attention as well, because requiring us to allow this property to be developed, whether it's developed with an industrial complex or residential homes, we are overdeveloped as it is, and there are severe issues. There's suggestions that the traffic will be reduced because they will use public transportation. No one's using public transportation to come to Sayreville. No one's taking a bus. No one's using a park and ride. So the basis for what the traffic circulation plan was based on in recommendations to the planning board is not factual. It's not realistic. And based on that alone, and the major issues that are raised, they recommended that there should be a portion of Main Street that's widened. That's not practical. Doesn't solve the problem. Actually creates a problem. You're going to widen it for a little bit, then go back to traffic. There are issues with the fact that there will only be an entrance on the Kimball Drives, which also relates to the bypass and opening up Kimball Drives. So the traffic circulation is just not realistic, and it should be stricken from the plan. It needs to be readdressed. They should not be able to put just things in the plan that, oh, we'll check it out later when the site plan comes around. That's a common theme that I'm hearing tonight. That's not realistic, especially considering the developer that we're dealing with. There's also another main issue in wanting to amend the master plan for this, is the consideration of how it affects Lakeview North and South. That needs to be addressed, because the way it currently is being handled now, from what I understand, is that the Lakeview North and South extension is not included in the amendment. But that needs to be considered as part of the traffic circulation plan. There needs to be discussion about how Crossman Road can be utilized, and what it would take to incorporate that into it to alleviate the traffic that'll be coming through Kimball Drive and the traffic that'll be on Main Street as well. There are other issues regarding public safety. They discussed that the way the plan has been recommended, that there's serious concerns for the opportunity for police and fire and other EMTs to get access to those areas. You must have adequate egress for public safety when you're going to have warehousing in the area. So that needs to be addressed. Neighbors are also concerned about their physical security, about these warehouses abutting up to their homes. So their physical security, you're going to be bringing in at least 400 people from God only knows where to now, abutting up against residential properties. We already have enough petty crime and drug use in this area of town. We don't need to import more potential issues. And there are other concerns regarding potential noise noise pollution, what are the hours that the warehouses are going to be able to operate? 24 hours, they can do what they want. There is concern enough for the practices that will go on that the plan recommends that we don't allow stacking of containers. So this is how big the property will be, that if the warehouses wanted to, they could stack containers back there. There are public safety issues in regards to, just the trucks themselves being able to access the property. In regards to just the general wear and tear of Main Street, wear and tear of Kimball Drives. Who's paying for that? These are things that just can't get swept under the rug, and hopefully that we all stay on top of it and they get addressed over time. As soon as this is given the green light, as soon as the master plan is amended, we lose all leverage to address some of these issues and real consideration for what should be done with that property. There are environmental concerns about the activities that will be going on there. And there are also issues about the business practices of the Mocha family and their partnership. In 2018, they were fined the largest amount by Jersey City, $500,000, for ignoring the requirements in Jersey City. They had to actually remove part of a building. They were fined $500,000 for that, and other issues. So I think that we need to do a little more due diligence on who we'd be working with. So they're already showing a disregard for a town that they have been working with. They have a long history of working with, and they're already disregarding that. The most important thing that I'd like to suggest, and I'd like to have further discussion on outside of this meeting, is you can't compartmentalize the discussions around developing this Main Street area. They all have to be discussed together. The impact of one impacts another. The Main Street bypass and opening up Kimball Drives, that impacts what happens at Fulton Landing. Because if you open up Kimball Drives and you allow just regular traffic to drive through our neighborhoods where our children play, where people park their cars, and now you open up an industrial complex across the way, that's a public safety issue. That's a quality of life issue. I would have never purchased a home there if I was going to be living across the street from warehouses. So when you discuss the Main Street bypass on its own and you discuss opening up the Kimball Drives, nobody's discussing really what the impact of that is in relation to Fulton Landing and what the warehouses there will do to having that opened. When you discuss homes being developed down the road, it's all part and parcel of one. You have to discuss everything together because it's a domino effect. You can't discuss it in isolation. It's not just a traffic issue, it's a danger issue. There was a woman who was hit by a car trying to cross the street by Kimball Drive West about a month ago, several years ago. I commute from Manhattan. There are people that saw one of their fellow commuters get hit by a car and then thrown in the air, hit by another car, thrown in the air, and die, just trying to cross the street at Main Street.
Thank you, Lisa. At this time, I'm going to have Mike answer what he can answer.
Yes, first and foremost, thank you. They're all valid comments and arguments. With respect to, the mine registration, this matter is registered with the mine commission or registration. They're governed by the Mine Safety Act. The Mine Safety Act, their registration expires on March 31st, 2020. I did have the opportunity to speak to Mr. Rittenhouse, last week, and he did raise some concerns, the same concerns that you were raising. I do know that the freehold conservation deals with erosion. If in fact there was erosion on the property, Mr. Mocco is in his development is going to have to address that. If there is any soil contamination, this is the jurisdiction of the DEP. If in fact you or Mr. Rittenhouse have any documents to indicate that there is soil that's contaminated brought on the site, you let me know and I will contact the DEP for you. I do know that there's a representative here of Mr. Mocco present at this, and so all of these complaints and all of these things are going to be addressed. I do know that it is on for May 28th, where all these concerns will be addressed also and aired. At it, again, just for your edifications, as you know, if in fact the ordinance is approved, it still has to go before the planning board in terms of any site plan, so all of your security interests, your traffic concerns. I do know I had the opportunity to speak with your attorney who's present in this evening, and he did say that his main concern was traffic and the circulation. I did introduce him to the representative from Mr. Makos, so I know for the past couple hours they were talking about that. They were also concerned, or your council was concerned, with the Main Street bypass. Apparently there was an objection filed to the Main Street bypass. They asked for a status of that. I did ask, or did advise your council that I'd be more than happy to sit down with him to go through what we are doing on the Main Street bypass. I know Mr. Cornell has pushed the Main Street bypass. We have not heard anything from the Corps, or the Army Corps of Engineers. So that's kind of what has been going on for the last hour and a half. I know your council was extremely concerned with traffic and then the Main Street bypass. And apparently there was an objection filed to the Main Street bypass. As you are aware, and I think you addressed it in your comments, you know, currently they can build 207 houses plus 600,000 square feet of warehousing. There is a proposal or a conceptual plan about building just warehousing, as you're aware. If in fact that vote occurs and there is an approval, you know, and there is a site plan, it goes back to the planning board. So all your concerns are valid. I want you to know that every one of the people up here are listening to you. And the counsel for Mr. Mako is here, so he's heard it. He's also heard it at the planning board. It's my understanding a representative was at the planning board. And so I told Mr. Rittenhouse when I spoke to him last week that I'd be more than happy to receive whatever documentation that he had regarding any development permits that were not or had expired. It's my understanding that from council that all necessary permits are up to date and have not expired. I know that Mr. Rittenhouse was referring to some permits that had expired. Those were from projects earlier approved. There are appropriate permits for the work being done. So I hope I answered your questions.
You have, and I do appreciate the situation that the town is in. I appreciate, you know, what it takes for all of you to do your jobs. But I don't think there's enough time between today and the time that you vote on the ordinance for these matters to really significantly be addressed. There is a flaw with the amendment of the master plan as it relates to the use of Lakeview Road. If you were at the planning meeting last week, you would have understood that at the end, when they were asked to vote, virtually all the members of the board were confused. They didn't know, their conscience was bothering them. They had tremendous issues with the questions that we raised about the traffic circulation. I think everyone is truly underestimating the impact of the traffic circulation in regards to the warehousing. It is not feasible to build warehouses across the way and allow those trucks to be entered onto Main Street in the way it's being recommended. So that's the basis for their plan. So the foundation of their plan. It's not just about quality of life. There are other issues. Traffic will come to a standstill. There will be public safety issues that you can't get the firemen in. You can't get the police in. We have no idea what's going to be going on over there. I think there needs to be more time to really sit down and understand what the foundation of this plan is, and as it relates to what you're being asked to vote on and how the master plan is supposed to be amended, because I don't think that the information is accurate as it relates to the plan. They couldn't vote last week. They actually had to have an ex parte conversation with one of the gentlemen in one of the planning member boards to kind of figure out how we're going to move forward tonight, because they didn't want to approve it. Because their conscience started bothering them. It was a circus. They didn't understand what task was before them because they had the same questions that we have. They were uncomfortable putting their stamp of approval on this in any shape or form, even though all they had to do was say, do you recommend that the council vote to amend the master plan? They didn't want to say yes to that.
Well, again, what I want to point out that, the mayor and council are hearing your arguments, and so that certainly, that petition, of tabling this ordinance can certainly be brought up if in fact it's at the discretion of the mayor and council. You raise valid points to that. I do know that, representative for Mr. Mako is here, so, I know Mr. Berry was here.
I have a question. Did the planning board already approve a plan to approve the 207 houses and 3 warehouses?
The planning board approved a plan in 2012 or 14, and the planning board approved 207 homes being built, single-family homes, and then a 600,000 square foot warehousing. I think they were developed in 3 different developments.
If I might, let me just clarify. The planning board never approved 207 houses. The planning board approved 610,000 square foot of warehouse on approximately a third of the property. There was an application submitted for 207 single-family homes. It was never deemed complete, so the planning board never took any action on it.
So they approved how many warehouses already?
It was 3 buildings. The total was approximately 610,000 square feet on approximately a third of the 150-acre parcel.
So what
That's what they already approved.
That has an
Okay.
approval.
Right, so.
That already has approval.
Right.
The warehouse.
Pending application to build 207 single-family homes on that property, but that application hasn't been heard because it hasn't been deemed complete yet.
Right, so it's our understanding that they're looking to amend the master plan to give the developers an option to just develop more warehousing space, because that will help satisfy some of the people in the community who do not want additional homes in the area because they don't want the burden on the school systems and they don't want the property taxes to skyrocket. So that's my understanding, that they're willing to compromise, but they're not willing to compromise and not develop a portion of the land and maybe donate it to the town to be used for other purposes. But they want to maximize their development. So in lieu of developing those homes that we don't want in town, they want more warehouse space, which increases the truck traffic and everything else. So I appreciate being heard, and I appreciate your time. I really do urge you to consider postponing this vote. I think what happens in these situations is that there's a lot of information out there, and people need to be heard. And there's been a lack of transparency from everyone who's been involved in this. The attorney for my homeowners association doesn't represent me. My homeowners association doesn't represent me. I pay taxes to Sayreville. I don't pay taxes to the homeowners association. There has been a lack of information about this. I attended one meeting 5 years ago, haven't heard anything since until last week. Everyone's up in arms about this, that, or the other. There needs to be a formal way of communicating this to the town and hearing us. Maybe there is nothing you can do. But maybe there is something you can do, and maybe there are compromises that can be made. We just don't know because we haven't had an opportunity to seriously get involved. The planning board doesn't represent me.
Well, again, council had asked, we're encouraging everyone to appear on May 28th who has an issue or a concern. It's important. I know I had an opportunity to speak to Mr. Rittenhouse last week, and I said, listen, we specifically put it on this agenda, calling people's attention, hey, listen, this ordinance isn't on for, today's May 13th, it's going to be on for May 28th, reminding people. So if in fact there are, anyone who has concerns, this mayor and council want to hear them and certainly address them as to whatever you bring up.
And I'm just recommending that there be a more formalized way of engaging the public on this going forward, with an opportunity to discuss delaying the vote on the ordinance, and then regardless of what the outcome of that is that going forward there needs to be regular communication from to the citizens, to the residents of this town, not through the planning board, not through the HOHs. It has to be direct communication, and we have to have a seat at the table. The Economic Committee, whatever that is, Sarah, they're not representing me either. They have a very skewed view of what their responsibilities are and what this town needs, in my opinion. So we need to be represented on this. We need to be heard in a productive way. Voicing our opinions at these meetings, that helps, but today's May 13th. There's not much we're going to get done after speaking here and then speaking again on May 28th. We need to have an opportunity to be more impactful and to understand what's happening. Seeing tax assessment maps and referring to lots of land and this, that just goes over everyone's head. Because that's not what we understand. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. I come before you with an extreme quality of life.
Can you just take your name? I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm
I'm
sorry.
familiar with you, but.
Ed Scudney, Scott Avenue, Melrose Section, Sayreville.
Thank you.
I come before you with an extreme quality of life issue that is occurring down there on Lower Scott Avenue. It's an unusual situation because it's also going across jurisdictional lines to affect the residents on Lower Raritan Street in South Amboy. I would like to read a prepared statement, and this situation has been going on since springtime. On behalf of myself and the residents that reside on Lower Raritan Street in South Amboy and Scott Avenue in the Melrose section of Sayreville, I would like to read a statement regarding Cambridge Paving Stones, which is an extremely large paving stone manufacturer located at the intersection of Lower Raritan Street and Main Streets in South Amboy. At the beginning of this year, Cambridge Paving Stones completed construction of a new high-rise sheet metal paving stone manufacturing building located next to Lower Raritan Street. In early spring, Cambridge began the paving stone manufacturing process in the newly constructed building. The manufacturing is extremely disturbing to the nearby residents with the continuous rumbling and vibrating noises that are being projected well beyond the Cambridge property lines and onto the properties of the nearby neighborhoods in Sayreville and South Amboy. The nerve-grating noise being projected is similar to a low-frequency rumbling drumbeat of short duration of about 2 seconds. It then stops for about 3 seconds and then repeats over and over again all day long and all evening long for 14 continuous hours. Recently, the South Amboy Police Department has been contacted on a number of occasions by residents reporting the noise complaints regarding Cambridge Paving Stones. Mr. Vrabel, who's in the audience, also reported the situation to the Sayreville Police Department. We, the residents who reside in the vicinity of Cambridge Paving Stones, can no longer tolerate the Cambridge manufacturing noise that has continuously invaded our properties and interiors of our homes. In the planning and construction of the new manufacturing building, Cambridge did not anticipate the noise that their business would project into the surrounding neighborhoods, or it simply did not care. We feel that we can no longer enjoy the peace and tranquility of our property and the quiet sanctity of the interior of our homes. I should report that this matter is being investigated by the Middlesex County Environmental Health Department. It is ongoing. It's been going on for several months, and so far we have no resolution. The residents of Scott Avenue area would request to the mayor and council that we receive your support in trying to rectify this problem. It is extremely disturbing to our families. Without trying to be facetious, I'd like to say that this past Sunday evening, I wanted to watch TV. It was so loud inside my home that I put earplugs in my ears and turned the volume up maximum just so I could hear the TV program. So with that being said, I thank you for your attention.
Do they don't have any time restraints on when they can operate over there? Because I've spoken to a couple residents over on Raritan from South Amboy, and I know they've been trying to address it with their council.
It's actually unbelievable what's going on. It's such a low frequency rumbling, and my home is aluminum siding. Mr. Vrabel's home is brick, and it's being projected right through the walls and the closed windows of our homes. And it's so nerve-grating because it's so repetitive. It goes for 2 seconds, it stops for 3 seconds. It goes for 2 seconds, stops for 3 seconds, 14 hours a day, from 8 a.m. till 10:30 in the evening. It
Doesn't
never
it?
stops.
Doesn't our noise ordinance have something, like, don't we have the ability
You
to?
do. I just explained to the mayor that you do have a new noise ordinance that entities operating within the borough have to abide by.
The problem is they're not operating
The
within.
the
Not
situation
operating.
Right, I
is
know,
that
but,
this,
but you had just.
it's
you-
located in South Amboy.
Right, you issued a complaint, though, to the Middlesex County Board of Health, correct?
For several months already.
Yeah, and so maybe, if I give you my contact information, I can reach out to the Middlesex Board of Health and determine, and as well as the engineer's office, to determine exactly what steps are being taken, because I understand and completely sympathize with you regarding the noise and trying to just sit and watch television, especially on Mother's Day, right? So I'll give you my card, and then maybe you can, explain to me who you contacted, and I can follow up and give it to the borough administrators to follow up.
Okay, we would appreciate any support that the mayor and council can give us in rectifying the situation. I presently feel that the only way to rectify the situation is that they're going to have to alter or modify their production. They have, I believe, a conveyor system inside. They make paving stones, and I don't know the reason for the rattling. Maybe Jay can explain something better than I can, why that noise would be created. But it's just unbearable. It's unbearable.
Okay. Mike's gonna give you your card. I'm gonna also let Mike know who I've been speaking to over in South Amboy as well, so he can get their side of it as well.
This coming Wednesday evening, I intend to attend the council meeting in South Amboy and present this statement.
When is it?
This coming Wednesday at 7 in South Amboy.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Come on up, Mr. Rittenhouse.
Good evening. Art Rittenhouse, 33 Delacat Lane, Saraville. I'm not going to go through everything. Lisa did a great job. I had not known Lisa until about 2-3 weeks ago. And the points she made are valid. What I am going to go through, and as Mike, Mr. DuPont referred to, is the land ordinance. For over 2 years, I have asked about the dirt that comes in from morning till night, 6 days a week onto that site. I've called the freehold, and going back, and Jay will attest to this, when I asked Jay who tests the soil, Freehold Soil Conservation District indicated to him that it was them. That's what Jay told me over the last 2 years, over 2 years. Well, in fact, what Freehold Soil Conservation District does is they approve a plan for them to bring in the dirt, as Mike was saying about the erosion. They do no testing of the soil whatsoever, zero. So I called DEP. I've been in touch with DEP, and I did file a complaint with them. I don't have the number with me, but I'll get it to Mike. DEP indicated to me that the permits that they had expired March 1st, 2018. Currently, and DEP and Freehold Soil Conservation both said it's up to the Borough of Saraville to have permits and have the copies of permits in their possession. I did file an OPRA request for the permits for the 3 blocks, Block 249-1, 251, and 251-1. The only thing we have are the expired permits from the Department of Environmental Protection. There are no other permits on file in the Borough of Saraville. So what's happening is the Mako people are bringing in the dirt, dropping the dirt there, and we have no idea what's in that dirt. Go along with what Mr. Phillips said about possibly that's affecting the groundwater because of all the grading they're doing. My concern is that dirt, because when I spoke to Courtney at Freehold Soil Conservation, she came out to the site May 1st, I believe it was, and she said that they indicated to her that the dirt they're bringing in comes from the bypass, National Lead, and the Parkway. It's wonderful having dirt coming from those areas, especially if they're not being checked. So we have no clue where that's coming from. When I spoke to DEP, I also found out from Courtney that there's an environmental problem next to the Mako property. There used to be a chemical plant, Evermol. That's leaking, and it's leaking into Burt's Creek. Burt's Creek is on the Mako property. Burt's Creek runs behind Main Street Townhomes. Burt's Creek overflows when we have heavy rain, like we've had this past week. So those houses that butt up on Telegraph, Burns Lane East, and Faith Drive East have the potential, if in fact that's contaminated water, that's going into their properties. And as Lisa said, I think we need to look at this whole picture before we go ahead and pass that ordinance. And when that ordinance is passed, it will change the master plan. It will eliminate Lakeview going through to Washington Road. And that is critical just for the emergency services. So again, I'm not going to go through all of the other things. I know at the planning board I brought this up, and I brought this up about possible contaminated soil. The Mako attorney said we're not worried about poisonous soil. We're only here to approve or disapprove and recommend a plan. I would think if I was the attorney for such a big corporation that I want to at least try and alleviate the fears of the residents. So that's the attitude that the Mako attorney had.
If I might, Mr. Rittenhouse, and I appreciate your comments. You know, as I explained to you last week, we have been looking into this for many, many months, as you are well aware. You know, this has been ongoing for quite some time. It's my understanding, and I explained to you the difference on the Mine Safety Act. I also explained to you that based on my understanding and my discussions with counsel for Mako, that the proper permits have been received and should be at the borough. If they're not, I will make sure that I give you a copy. It's the first this evening that I did not know they were on, not on the...
You did review my Oprah request, didn't you?
Not always, because if in fact
But I
it's
think
not...
you indicated when we spoke you had looked at my Oprah request.
But there were a couple Oprah requests that were made,
So-
but again, I'd love to see the complaint that you file with the DEP. I'll follow up with my contact and my representative, but I do know that we have been looking into this, all the issues that were addressed quite extensively. So before the end of this evening, I'll give you my card. I'm running out of cards. I think you get the last one. I'll put my cell phone on it, and I know that you have used my cell phone in the past, so
Yes.
feel free to call me.
Just one other point on that. I'm sorry, lost what my trend of thought. Oh, the mining. I would appreciate if you could give me the information where I can contact the mining, because I did Google it. It's been in two different departments, the Department of the Interior and another department, and the Mine Safety Act portion of it closed 4 years ago.
Right, and the Department of Labor and Workforce Development is, I guess, tasked to implement and issue these mine registration certificates. So it's the Department of Labor and Workforce Development. It's not a
Right.
Department of Mining or anything of that
But
nature.
everybody I've talked to in every department, state, have indicated that's the borough responsibility. We do have an ordinance for landfill.
We have an ordinance that requires, certainly when there is a development permit, it's my understanding, correct?
It's any
Jay?
movement of soil.
So, well, no, that's not the ordinance in particular. The ordinance, and Jay, if you can correct me if I'm wrong, but it's any approved development.
That's what usually triggers is the movement of soil, and it's typically in conjunction with an approved development application.
So what happens when there's no approved application at the time? So who checks the soil then?
I think it depends on where the soil is located. Here, because this is considered a mining site, years ago, there was an interpretation that the borough does not have jurisdiction. If it's a vacant piece of property owned by a resident, then the borough would have jurisdiction.
So based on the review of the Mine Safety Act, it would appear that the jurisdiction rests with the DEP. But again, you know what, I'll follow up on the complaint that you followed. I know this mayor and council have repeatedly gone over a number of these issues that are being addressed.
And the
So I'll-
Mako property also gave permission to cut down trees without getting a permit for that to allow access to where the contaminated soil is leaking into Burt's Creek. So
Well, I'll give-
obviously, they don't like to file and give the borough their permits.
Well, I can rest assured that we will make sure that they comply with all the state ordinances as well as the local ordinances. And you know, we got, if I can, we've got one of the best engineering companies in the state. So I know that.
I don't disagree with that.
Right. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Yes, sir.
Evening, everybody. My name is Robert Griffin, Griffin Alexander, PC, on behalf of the Main Street Homeowners Association. Try again?
There you go.
Robert C. Griffin, Griffin Alexander, PC, on behalf of the Main Street Homeowners Association. I want to focus in a little bit on what Lisa said before. You'll be happy to know that she stole a lot of my thunder, so I won't speak nearly as long as I usually do. I read the redevelopment plan. It called for appropriate volume of truck traffic and storage of goods. It called for the balance to. It called to for the balancing of the desired improvements to the area with the protection of residential developments in the vicinity from detrimental impacts, and it called for ensuring the traffic patterns along Main Street are not adversely impacted. I don't think anybody can make the statement that last one is true. It also tried to eliminate, at this very, very early stage, the Lakeview Drive notion, which might be essential to minimizing the impact. And I think it's way too early to talk about that in a zoning ordinance. I think that possibility should be preserved and investigated if ever there is an application comes before a planning board or a zoning board. I also noted in the redevelopment plan that it referred to the county transportation plan of 2013, saying that it was that the Main Street bypass was identified as important for freight transportation through the borough. So that has to be fleshed out before decisions are made. You have at the corner of Kimball Drive East, a F-rated traffic congestion pattern there. F is the worst. It's a failure rate, A through F, and you're at F. The last traffic engineer to look at this area was back in the 2014 proposed development, which, by the way, had a condition on it that we haven't discussed tonight, and the condition was that a traffic light be placed at Kimball Drive East. And the county, because it's a county road, decided not to place a traffic light there, but to place one farther down on the west. But it was a level of service F in 2014. The same traffic engineer estimated that there would be a 2% increase in traffic every year thereafter. So you have another 8% to deal with. And I agree with Lisa's comment earlier that a segmental view of this application is wrong. Whether the bypass comes or not is a big deal, because what's proposed right this minute is that all that traffic that leaves Main Street down at River Road and comes up will terminate at Kimball Drive East and come right into the already traffic congested pattern, level F of service, right at that intersection. There's nowhere else to go. Main Street has asked the borough for years and years and years, if you're going to do your bypass, let it go to Crossman before opening it up to traffic at Kimball Drive East and West. And Apparently, that's been ignored because the last 2 applications to the DEP called for Phase 2 to end at Kimball Drive East and then to send all that traffic that goes on the bypass right up to that traffic light, which is non-existent right now. There's no traffic light there. That traffic will back up all the way through our wonderful single-family home community, our townhouse community, and it'll back up onto the bypass because there's no place for that traffic to go. And if you put a traffic light there, then some people will be able to turn left and go out. And if you put another traffic light at Kimball Drive West, some people will be able to turn there. But so much of the traffic pattern now will be pushed down to the west, down that road, because you have to stop for the new traffic light that was put in a couple of years ago. You'll have to stop for the traffic light at Kimball Drive West, the traffic light at Kimball Drive East, and the traffic light at Crossman to get anywhere. And so all you're doing is kicking the can down the road and making the traffic worse to the west. On the other side of the coin, if the Main Street bypass was continued to Crossman, people would have a place to go. Our 376 units could exit out the community to the back and go out the bypass, and Main Street would actually have some traffic relief. But to dump all the traffic from the Main Street bypass into the level F of service and then expect that a 1.8 million square foot industrial use is going to be okay there defies explanation. Can I ask a couple of questions now?
If I might, this is not a question and answer. You can certainly inquire, and if the mayor and council, as I explained to you earlier,
discretionary.
As I explained to you earlier, and you're well aware, this is the subject of litigation. So if in fact it breaches upon that, I'll certainly advise that. I know you had the opportunity to speak to council with Mako. If in fact I can answer those questions for you, I'll certainly do the best I can.
It has less to do with the Mako site, actually. Okay. I want to know if you're actually going to build the National Lead site out.
Again, I can't answer that. I know there's proposals out there, but I can't say it's actually going to occur.
I saw the Bass Pro Shop coming soon, 2019.
Well,
Is that
again,
gonna happen?
It's currently being developed, and it's been a long road, that's for sure.
What about finishing the bypass? Are there any plans to finish the bypass all the way out to the National Lead site?
I know that you filed an objection on behalf of your clients for that. You said you'd indicated that you'd filed it in 2013, if I recall, 14?
Yeah. There were multiple ones,
right.
2014,
yeah.
2017.
Your objection to the Main Street bypass, we have, and Mr. Cornell can correct me if I'm wrong, we have been waiting patiently for the office, the Army Corps of Engineers to return back to some comments. I know that you had indicated in our brief discussion earlier that you had not heard from the office of the Army Corps of Engineers. We are progressing with Main Street bypass, but your objection in our application hasn't been finalized, correct?
So I just find it very difficult, and the devil always being in the details. I find it difficult to make a proper evaluation of a 1.8 million square foot site that's going to bring traffic to a level of service F right in front of our complex and not know what's going to happen with the bypass and what traffic effect it'll have. And I think that's probably some of what was bothering the planning board.
Yeah, and I know that you had indicated your concerns to Mr. Mako, that your chief concern was the traffic, as well as your objection to the Main Street bypass. And that's why I introduced yourself today to that representative, and I hope those discussions were fruitful. I also explained to you that I gave you my number and my card, that I will certainly give you whatever information I have regarding the update on the Main Street bypass, which we are still waiting diligently and patiently for an answer. Even Mr. Cornell's office, with their persuasion and institutional knowledge, are still waiting. So I'll certainly follow up with you, this week if you'd like.
Great, thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Griffin.
Yes, sir.
Ed Little again, 12 Piero Court. I was going to say this for the planning board, but since everybody else brought it up, I always always viewed the planning board, the committee, the township, everybody that's running it has two major prospects, two major goals to meet. One is safety of the citizens, and the other is the betterment of life within the community. I have no doubt that everyone here has that in their front of their minds all the time. And I know you're restricted by the laws and the courts and everything else. But just on the Kimball Drives, with the bypass ending there, you're putting all the children in danger. You're putting all the residents in danger. You're talking about the backup, that, you know, because the traffic can't get out Kimball Drive, we wouldn't be able to get out of our courts. And if the flow patterns were free and clear, human nature means people are going to speed. So you have to address all the safety issues if you're going to stop at Kimball Court. Ideally, like everybody is pointing out, and you can even see it yourselves, Crossman is the best way to go into that warehouse. Ideally, if you build the bypass, build it all at once. Don't do it in piecemeal because you are creating difficulties for everybody. So that's just the final thought. Safety first. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Charlie Lukey, Oak Street, down in Melrose. I would like to know if the mayor and council would pen a letter to the governor saying that they're not in favor of what he's done to the volunteer fire company. The man has taken away the benefit, okay? Originally, he wanted the entire amount, $33 million of the relief money that the people, the volunteers are entitled to. He wanted that, okay? Well, he found out that he committed suicide with that. So he turned around and he made another deal. He only wants 2/3. I don't know if you people are aware. That money comes from out-of-state insurance companies, and they paid 3%. He wants 2%. He wants to leave us with 1%. Okay? That's going to affect the volunteers coming into the companies. Believe me, you're going to be losing your membership. So I'd appreciate if you'd pen a letter to that boy and tell him he messed up. All right? Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public wish to speak? Anyone else? If none, I'll entertain a motion.
Make a motion to close the public part.
Oh, hold on.
Good evening. My name is Dwayne Santos, resident of Saraville.
I'm sorry, your address?
126 Windingwood Drive.
And you're the president of?
Well, actually, I've been hearing, you know, about trucks. I'm a truck driver, owner-operator, you know, and, you know, trying to find parking. Okay. Thank you. Yeah, and, you know, there's a problem with parking. You know, I was parking over at Kennedy Boulevard, and I didn't know there was an ordinance, you know, so I ended up getting 2 tickets there. And I'm hearing people, you know, kind of talking about trucks going across Main Street. But anyway, I have something I want to read. Challenge with truck parking. There's many challenges with the current organization of truck parking across North America. Firstly, truck drivers and dispatchers spend a considerable amount of time searching for a legal parking space. While the truck is en route, secondly, Secure tractor trailers parking for a high-value cargo is in the demand that is increasing each year. Thirdly, illegal truck parking due to lack of parking space is endangering the traveling public and resulting in tickets and fines for drivers. City truck parking bylaws. Most municipality has zoning bylaws, which governs which parts of the city can be allocated to the development of truck parking facilities. The three most common types of zone are residential, industrial, and agricultural. Truck parking lots can generally only be established in industrial zone sites, which for me, that would be Kennedy Boulevard. You know, I tried finding parking, you know, at the truck parking lots, but everywhere I go is filled up. You know, like I said, I got three tickets now. You know, I called my council to see what I can do on Kennedy Boulevard. There's no sign, there's no ordinance sign saying that, you know, a driver can't park there. So, you know, I'm in business. This is what I do, you know. Everybody wants their goods to be delivered, but nobody wants to see the truck on the road, you know, especially in front of them. You know, I can't park on the property. I also have a trailer. So, you know, maybe you can come up with a solution for me.
Are you parking your cab and your trailer on Kennedy? Or are you just
Yeah.
parking your cab on
No,
Kennedy?
I'm parking both on Kennedy.
And you're parking it overnight?
Right.
So you get,
I
you either Uber or you do something to get you over to get to your truck, correct?
Well, I have my son, he comes pick me up, takes me home, and then brings me back over to the truck.
And is that the only place you have tried to park your cab and trailer?
Walmart doesn't want us parking there anymore.
Understand?
You know, I try not to, like, if I know I'm gonna leave early in the morning, I may do the mall. But
You're a single entrepreneur, owner, operator, correct?
yes.
Okay.
You know,
We'll reach out to our police department and see where we can get you parking, or if there is even a possibility of that. If there aren't any signs, we'll make sure that we have signs posted where they should be posted, so that it's not an unexpected ticket. Okay?
okay, that's fair enough.
All right, thank you.
How can I get in touch? Because when I call during the day, I don't get an answer.
If you could just leave your information on this sheet of paper, we'll reach out to you. Okay. Anyone else from the public wish to speak? Yes, sir.
Thank you, Council President. About a month ago, I came and asked about the property in Old Bridge, but adjacent to our well fields where trucks were parked. And Mr. Frankel said he would reach out to Old Bridge officials the next day. And 2 weeks later, I came to the meeting and asked for an update. He told me that folks in Old Bridge hadn't gotten back to him yet. I'm wondering if...
Has there been an update?
I was told, Mr. Robinson, that you had been successful in contacting the officials, so I thought you might have asked a question, because when I was told that you asked, I figured they would give you the answers to your question.
What did you, I'm only a citizen. You're the business administrator of the neighboring
told me
town.
they-
Certainly you have more prestige and carry more weight than I do.
I don't think so, Mr. Robinson. The
With the
citizen is
folks in
just
Old Bridge.
is very important.
Okay, well, let me tell you what I learned. And maybe you're right, because Mr. Himanshu called me back immediately after I called him. And then he arranged a conference call with the engineering department and the planning department and the code officials. They looked into their records and they saw that this site indeed had gone before the planning board in Old Bridge, that it got approval, it got several waivers. Some of the waivers were from Macadam, Some of the waivers were for containment devices, so if anything were to spill, it would go into the ground. And that they were approved to park trucks that transport fuel. So there are trucks that transport fuel parked immediately adjacent to our well fields, maybe over our well fields. I mean, well fields go underground, so they don't follow the boundaries of the road. And he told me that the borough of Sayreville, and I knew this, is required by the MLUL, the town would have to be notified when an application in an adjacent municipality is filed if it touches our border. So I guess in 2013, the governing body received notification of this, and I'm wondering if what was done, was it received and filed? Did we act on it? Did we ask any questions? You know, when the gentleman was talking about Cambridge Stone, same kind of situation. Something on our border, just over the borderline, but obviously annoys residents of Sayreville. Under the MLUL, the town would have had to be notified of that. And I'm not saying that every time something happens on our border that you have to send somebody to the planning board meeting to see what's going on there. But in this situation, if they filed a notice, and the notice might have even said that it was for a application, a use, where there would be trucks, somewhere around 40 trucks, carrying fuel. Now, I was a little concerned that Old Bridge approved it. I'm a little concerned that we might have gotten notice, and I don't know that we did. I know the law requires that we have it, and they were going to take a look and see, and, you know, I would even raise a jurisdictional issue if we didn't get notice. 2013. 2013. Now, they have not complied with all of the conditions of their approval. So it is possible that that can be revisited, or some of the waivers can be taken a look at, or that they can be told they're not in compliance and to pack up. But I really think this isn't my responsibility, and I'm not so sure that I understand exactly what Mr. Frankel was saying when he said, I called him so he didn't do anything. No, it's the Borough of Sayreville's responsibility. It's the Borough of Sayreville's well field. And certainly the borough has the resources and the expertise that I don't have to find out about this and see what the status is, and if that can be stopped or at least made safer, so that if there is a spill there in one of those 40 trucks carrying fuel, that fuel doesn't leak into our well fields. I'm a little disappointed in that response, Mr. Frankel.
So at this
what
point,
do you think we can do here?
At this point, can we turn around and have our clerk look into whether or not we received the notice to adjacent property owners dating back to 2013? Then who would we turn around and reference that over to? Jay, would you be able to look into anything that we have in reference to how we can protect our well fields and things like that in reference to trucks that could have a potential hazard carrying fuel? And then what our legal ability would be, Mr. DuPont, as far as contacting Old Bridge and determine if we can put restrictions on those types of things. So that's like a triangular little.
Let's look at the notice from 2013. I'll circle back with Dan and then follow up with Jay and report back.
Sounds great.
Yeah, and I'm sure they could tell you exact date of that. If I looked at my notes, I might even have the exact date, but I'm sure they sent notice. I have one other very quick question. I heard discussion about changing the master plan. I assume from what they're talking about, it is to eliminate the extension of Lakeview Drive. Is that something that is being actively considered by the governing body?
Right now, I want to take a look at what the planning board did. It's not before us again. I know we sent it over there to get their comments and feedback.
Yeah,
I am very grateful that the residents came before us today to speak their mind, and I believe we try to be as open and transparent as we can be. So I would like to take a look at that now and see if we need to have further discussion.
Yeah, no, that's, it's not up for the 28th, so you can certainly look at it between now and then.
So that's a possibility for May the 28th?
Well, the ordinance is to be heard on May the 28th.
Okay, but the ordinance doesn't change the
The
master
ordinance has the redevelopment plan in it, the amended redevelopment plan. So I think I gave you a copy of that at the last meeting.
Yes.
And so if you have
But
questions.
would that be changing the master plan? I mean, it's very unusual at the
Again,
governing
I
body.
don't have, since it's not up tonight, I don't have that redevelopment plan with me.
Okay.
I know it's not on the agenda for this evening. It's only on the agenda meeting just for notification purposes that it's on for the 28th. I know that I gave you my copy at the last meeting, so I don't have it this
Actually,
evening.
Mrs. Novak gave me her copy.
Yeah.
You
but
would have given me.
I offered it to you, I think. So, again, I don't have it since it's not up this
Okay,
evening.
but in theory, though, does a redevelopment plan
Well, I don't want to,
change a master plan? I mean,
No, it doesn't.
That's very
Right,
unusual.
right.
I've never
So-
seen that happening, and the master plan is
We don't-
strictly within the purview of the planning board,
Right.
which
And-
is a non-political body. The council, by definition, is a political body.
We don't,
and
we
they-
don't like to talk about theoretical. We only want to talk about what we can do and what we can't do. So I know.
Sometimes if we don't talk about theoretical early on, when it's an actual, it's too late. We've
Well,
seen
again,
that happen.
That's why we're giving notice tonight to remind that it's on for the 28th. And again, since it's not on this evening, I don't have that in front of me
Okay.
to answer that question.
Well, theoretically, if there were changes to the master plan that would eliminate the north-south connection, that would be the extension of Lakeview Drive, I'd have some questions and some concerns about that.
Sure.
Okay, thank you very much, I appreciate it.
Anyone else from the public wish to speak? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
Motion, we close the public portion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, entertain a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion, we adjourn.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Take a few seconds. Anybody need to take a break? No? Okay. At this time, I'm going to call the meeting to order. Would everyone please rise for a salute to the flag? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Jessica?
Take notice that this agenda session meeting of the mayor and council being held on this 13th day of May 2019 has been advertised and posted in accordance with Open Public Meetings Act, Chapter 231, Public Law 1975.
Roll call.
Councilpersons Buchanan.
Here.
Delina.
Here.
Enriquez.
Here.
Kilpatrick. McGill. Novak.
Okay. We don't need to read these. Anyone have any objection on any of them? Okay, communications reports. Administration and Finance, Councilman McGill.
Thank you, Council President. Minutes and Department reports are none. B, applications received for bingo raffle license from the following organizations: the PTO Harry S. Truman School, number 2, the Animal Rescue Force, and number 3, RJC Charities Incorporated.
Next item.
Otherwise, progress.
Thank you. Planning and Zoning, Councilman Delina.
Minutes and departmental reports. I have planning board minutes of April 10th, receive and file.
Second.
B, notice to adjacent municipality property owner, number 1, receive and file.
Second.
Reports from the planning board from the following their May 8th meeting, numbers 1 through 3, receive and file, except for number 3, it's received further discussion, will be on May 28th.
All of them are.
All of them, I'm sorry, all of them. Okay. So receive and file, and then progress.
Okay, Councilwoman Kilpatrick, if you could do Public Works and Water and Sewer?
Thank you. Absolutely, Mayor, thank you. I move the following minutes and departmental reports. The Board of Health minutes of April 4th, 2019, receive and file. And the request for the use of the
Second.
borough's, request, yeah, I'm sorry, I thought I heard you say something. Request for the use of the borough's portable stage received from the Saraville Board of Education for use during their middle school and high school graduations from June 18th through the evening of June 21st. Certificate of insurance has been posted.
Any objection?
No.
Next
None.
item?
And that's all, Mayor, thank you.
Okay, Councilman Enriquez, Recreation?
All right, minutes and departmental reports. Recreation Advisory Board minutes of May 2nd, 2019, receive and file.
Second.
And have a report from Jerry Yust, some updates. The rec department is currently accepting registration for this year's summer programs and camps. Please visit SayeVilleRec.com to create a free account and register and pay online. We also have the Fishing Derby at Kennedy Park, which is scheduled for Saturday, May 18th, rain or shine. Registration is free and begins at 8:30 with fishing from 9 to 10:30. We also have 2 bus trips, one to Yankee Stadium, one to Citi Field. We only have 1 game each for both, so get on SayeVilleRec.com to participate. We also have movies in the park, 3 dates scheduled, and the rec department is accepting picnic rental applications. To submit an application, go online to SayeVilleRec.com, print out a facility use form, and return it to the rec office to check availability.
Thank you. Anything else?
Progress, Mayor.
Okay, under my reports, I do not have any. Under the mayor's report, I see that he wanted to have a revised resolution for the path to progress. I have no interest in that. Does anyone have an interest to bring that up for the next meeting?
I do not, no.
Okay, so if he wants to bring it up, he can bring it up, but you see the feelings of the council. Next item, Dan Frankel, Business Administrator's Report.
Thank you, Mayor. Under Administration and Finance, we have to create a time for a special meeting amongst ourselves to discuss the capital budget items for expenditure. So I have to know when you would like to meet.
What's there to discuss?
There was items that we had in the capital, multi-million-dollar items that we have to discuss which ones we're going to spend money on and which ones we're not going to spend money on.
Okay, we passed the capital, though. We passed the budget. So wouldn't it just come up before us through ordinances?
It can, but I think some of the departments were asking, were all of those capital budgets, items in the capital budget, do you just want them to come, each one to come in front of the council for discussion of?
And that's how we've done it in the past. I mean, I know that's not a great answer, but obviously the council felt that those tasks were needed, or those items were needed. So as the department heads feel that they're essentially needed, they'd put a bond ordinance before us. That's my thought on how it's always gone and how we do it.
If that's what the council wants to do. I think there's a lot on the capital that was in the budget that was passed, and I think it was the feeling of some of the directors that they felt that they were going to get those items in the budget, and some people are discussing they may not get those things in the budget. So if you want me to
I just think that would be when we were talking about the budget. We passed this budget with the capital. I thought the council was on board for those projects or those items.
No, and we did have discussions of tabling some of them items.
Wouldn't that have needed to be done before we passed the budget? Mike?
It can be. I mean, you have a budget that I'm sure does have some capital projects that are included in it. Your practice has been to come up before. I'm not quite sure what the meeting is. The meeting is to go over the capital projects within the budget and then decide which ones you want to do and which one you don't.
I think if we did all of those, if we did all of the projects that are in the capital budget, we would be overextending the monies that we are looking to spend.
So I guess what you're asking.
Prioritize, maybe I'm looking to prioritize?
So all you're asking is for a special meeting to be held before maybe a council meeting to kind of ask for the mayor and council's priority list on the budgets or the capital projects contained in the budget? That's what you're asking for?
My feeling would be that the directors or the department heads would put their preferences 1 through 5 or whatever it is, and then bring that before the council, not for us to decide what they need, what they don't need at the.
That's an option too. I'm just not quite sure how it's done traditionally.
And I've never seen it where we passed a capital and now we're having a secondary meeting on it.
Why don't we wait for a little bit of guidance from Denise? She's not here today. Do we need to make this meeting today? I mean, is the 28th okay? I mean, we're not looking to turn around and, we're not under the gun for the 28th?
You can
Let's get some insight from,
You can probably ask for maybe a 5:30 or 6 o'clock meeting, just.
We have a special meeting at 6 o'clock already on the 28th.
So,
So let's wait for Denise on the 28th, and in the meantime, I'd have the directors, department heads come up with their lists in order. But again, I've never heard, and this is my 12th budget I've done, we've never done this before. You pass the capital because those are projects that the council believes needs to get done.
Okay. Moving forward to public safety, authorization to award a contract to Tactical Public Safety for radio system and E911 maintenance through New Jersey State Contract T0109 AA3932 in amount not to exceed $44,803.97.
Next item.
Authorization to award a contract to Gramco Business Communications for the purchase and installation of interview room, sound, and recording equipment at the Public Safety Complex through ESC&J Co-op Contract 1718-29, an amount not to exceed $34,638.
Next item.
Authorization to appoint a grant writer in an amount of not to exceed $2,000 in order to pursue a grant in the amount of $15,000 to be used for rescue jacks for motor vehicle extrication through grant sponsor Firehouse Subs.
Next item.
Confirmation that you should all know about a special meeting scheduled for 6 o'clock for swearing in promotion of 10 officers.
Next item.
Authorization to apply for membership in the Passaic Valley Sewerage Commission North Jersey Cooperative Pricing System. Authorization to appoint of Christy Biebert as Clerk 1 in the Water Department effective June 1st, 2019.
Next item.
Authorization, the appointment of Steve Mazin as Sewer Repair 1 in the Sewer Department effective June 1st, 2019.
Next item.
That's it, Mayor.
Okay, does Denise have anything?
No report.
Okay, engineers report?
Thank you, Mayor. First item, improvements to Algar Avenue. You've already taken action to reject the bids and authorize re-advertising, so we'll proceed to get that advertised. Items 2 and 3 have to do with your ongoing underground storage tank removal program. There's 2 remaining sites. One is the Crosman Pump Station, and other is the former First Aid Squad, which is right out here behind Borough Hall. Crosman Pump Station, we need to abandon monitoring wells and submit a report to the state. I spoke with Denise about funding for both of these. There's money in place for Crosman, so we'd like a resolution authorizing that work to proceed. But on the former First Aid Squad site, we actually have to remove contaminated soil, which is a larger scale project. You had money in your capital budget for that, so Denise said if everyone agrees, she'll get the paperwork going to introduce that ordinance so we can move forward with that phase of the project.
Okay, anything else?
That's it, thank you.
Attorney's report? No report, Mayor. Okay, I just want to step back 2 things real quick. On this coming Wednesday, the PBA Annual Memorial Service at the PBA Memorial Garden at the Public Safety Building. It's at 5:30. Everyone's invited. Number 2, I had reached out to Kevin and Vicky to try to set up something to meet up with the fire chief. If we could come up with a date for next week, before next meeting. I don't know if anyone's available, if you guys are available on Thursday.
let's see, next week on
If you could just stay around for a few minutes, we could just sit with Kevin.
Yeah, that's what I thought would be,
discuss.
Thursday wasn't good
Yeah.
for me, but I have a few dates.
Yeah, let's go sit with Kevin in the back before everyone leaves tonight, and then come up with a date. Other than that, we go to the public portion. Anyone have any comments? Yes, sir.
Steve Malineski, 28 Scarlet Drive in
Yes, sir.
Berlin. I listened to a lot of the dialogue about the Fulton's Landing. I agree with many, many of the statements that were made. I'm sure the council does too. What I'm a little perplexed about in reading the agenda session, item C, under the planning and zoning, number C, 2, 1, 2, and 3. It seems like the writing in there really emphasizes the commentary that we heard tonight. And I just don't understand how we're going to bring this to a vote on the 28th, when this seems to be, even the planning board seems to be in complete negativity, if you will, towards what's going on. And based on everything we heard tonight, sounds like it'd be more detrimental to the town than a positive step forward. So I'm just asking, with all this negativity on Fulton's Landing, why is it coming to a vote on the 28th?
We have that discussion.
It's coming up for a vote because you introduced it. There has to be either a tabling of it, a denial of it, or approve of it, so.
Why can't it be tabled tonight?
Because it's not on the agenda.
Okay, it takes 2 votes. How many votes to table? 2?
Well, it's a vote. It's not just 2, you gotta take a vote on it.
Because it just seems like there's so many open issues, as the
Well, that's
resident said
that's-
today.
Again, remember, it's not on the agenda for this evening. It's on the agenda for the 28th. So that's one alternative that this mayor and council can take, right?
Okay.
You can table it, deny it, approve it.
Okay.
So we'll have it in front of us, we'll be able to digest it, we'll be able to have dialogue with the residents back and forth, and at that time, the council can make a determination on what they want to do, move forward, stop, or table.
Okay. One more question, maybe this is more for Jay. I know previously we talked about the road condition, in the town, and they're pretty shoddy, to say the least. We were talking about, Jay, the railroad on Main Street, down by about the senior center, all the way down to Standiford, or whatever it is, towards White Oaks. I noticed that a section of the street, because you had mentioned it was going to be repaired in April. And I see a piece of the street has been repaired, repaved. But a large, maybe over a mile of that main street is all railroad. You have to move your car to the right of the street just to go down so you don't vibrate, lose your fillings, as Mary had said. So I want to know I see this $3.8 million, a bond being floated for repairs to the roads. Is that included in that? I mean,
Well, if I might, Main Street's a county road, so that project is not a borough project, it's a county project. I think you saw it was on the agenda because the council had to go through and agree that they wanted the project to move forward. So the council took action. The Middlesex County said it was going to be constructed in April. I believe that they've gone out to bid and received bids. So that project, I would think, would be started shortly. The work that was done, I think, was by the senior center. Is that maybe what you're referring to? That was a traffic signal project that the county did, and also ADA ramps. But from there, heading back toward Baymhurst Avenue, that's where the railroad track issue is, and the county had a separate project to address that. They coordinated all the police control and detours with our local police department, and then it was going to bid. So it is something the county's moving forward with.
okay, that makes me feel a little better because I was saying, please don't let that be the project that we talked about.
No.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public? If not, I'll entertain a motion to close the public
Make a
portion.
motion, we close the public portion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any items for executive?
No, sir.
Okay, entertain a motion to,
Make a motion, we adjourn.
there you go.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you, everyone.
Hey, by the way, did you see that email from?
I did, yeah.
That was pretty